Money, power, and high government positions can buy you a lot of things. Is freedom one of them? How far would a government official go to cover up a lethal mistake? Watch the story of married father of four who took drastic measures when the object of his extramarital affection wanted to end the relationship. Powerful multimillionaire and Delaware Deputy Attorney General Thomas Capano thought he owned the world. When feisty go-getter Anne Marie Fahey had enough of his arrogance, she ended the relationship. No one ever saw her again. Thomas Capano and Anne Marie Fahey met at a political function in 1994 and felt an immediate attraction. He was a prominent lawyer, and she was the governor's secretary. A lunch date turned into several more, and the two began a whirlwind romance. Insecure Anne Marie was overwhelmed by the attention of such an important, charismatic man. She was rubbing shoulders with high society, a stark contrast to the tough childhood with an emotionally missing father and fatally ill mom. The fancy dinners, extravagant gifts, and long weekends away were a dream come true for her. It was par for the course for wealthy Capano, who had grown up in an affluent family with four brothers who were known to get vicious when things didn't go their way. The relationship had problems from the very beginning. The news was starting to wear off, and the secret meetings and cagey hookups required to avoid revealing their romantic relationship were starting to get to her. Deeply religious, Anne Marie was bothered by the fact that Thomas was married and began to pull away. To make matters worse, she learned Thomas had multiple other affairs, including one very lengthy relationship with a woman named Debbie McIntyre. He began to show disturbingly odd behavior, stalking her and behaving in a wildly possessive manner. Anne Marie kept a diary in which she chronicled her life, including her romantic relationship with Thomas Capano. She had kept it secret from her large Irish family, but her diary told the tale of how her sunny, budding romance with Thomas Capano had turned sour with his jealousy and demanding demeanor. She described him in it, saying, "What a controlling, manipulative, insecure, jealous maniac." When Thomas left his wife, Kay, and rented an extravagant home in the suburbs, Anne Marie was even more upset. She didn't want to be the reason for a divorce, she told her diary. More determined than ever, Anne Marie tried to break off the relationship. She had started a new relationship with a man named Michael Scanian, who she was quickly falling in love with. He was closer to her age than Thomas, who was 18 years older. He was also single and returned her affection wholeheartedly. Anne Marie told friends she could see herself spending the rest of her life with him, and she wanted nothing else to do with Thomas. Being told no was not something Thomas Capano was used to. His ego wouldn't let Anne Marie leave him after he'd left his wife and changed his life in an effort to keep her. He refused to let her cut ties and harangued her daily. He broke into her apartment and destroyed all the gifts he'd given her. She wrote in her diary that she was afraid of him and the threats he leveled against her. Just as she told her therapist that she couldn't handle it anymore, he relented. On June 27, 1996, Anne Marie agreed to meet him for dinner to officially end the romantic relationship. It was the last time anyone ever saw her again. Anne Marie's tightly scheduled life just stopped. She wasn't keeping any appointments or her commitments to her tight-knit family, and she didn't call any friends or return phone messages. By June 30th, her family reported her missing. Anne Marie's sister, Kathleen, went through her apartment and found letters from Thomas, letters that suggested a very personal relationship. Police immediately went to Thomas for answers. He was open and forthcoming, admitting the nature of the relationship. He told the police about their dinner and said he'd last seen her when he dropped her off. He claimed he stopped for gas and went home. A week went by and Anne Marie was still missing. Hundreds of people formed a search party to no avail. With no leads and no forensic evidence, investigators put their focus on Thomas, the last person to see her alive. When they interviewed the staff at the restaurant where they ate, several employees told them the couple had been uncomfortable and always stopped their conversation when the waitress came by. Suspicion began to grow about Thomas's involvement in Anne Marie's disappearance. Evidence was stacking up against him. Police caught him in a lie when they found he hadn't stopped for gas after dropping off Anne Marie, as he had said in his original statement. Another devastating clue appeared when police interviewed his housekeeper. She said she was told not to work the week Anne Marie disappeared. When she came back, a couch and carpeting in one room had been replaced. It didn't take long for Thomas to lawyer up and start shutting the police out. Investigators ordered a search warrant for Thomas's home and found Anne Marie's DNA in 3 places. Thomas Capano was now the main suspect in Anne Marie's disappearance, but there was still no forensic evidence to prove it. Authorities searched landfills and wooded areas, but came up empty-handed. It was time to re-strategize. They theorized Anne Marie must be in a large area of water. It was the only place left to look. They knew Thomas's brother, Jerry, owned a boat and organized a raid on his home that netted thousands of dollars in firearms and illegal substances. Jerry went to Thomas and begged for his help. He refused, a decision he regretted for years. Knowing he needed to make a deal, Jerry told a story about his brother that no one expected. He told a gruesome tale that started a few hours after Anne Marie was last seen alive. Thomas arrived at his house in the early morning hours, saying he'd taken out someone who was trying to extort him. He had the remains in a cooler. Jerry agreed to help Thomas take the cooler out in his boat and sink it in the sea. In a sick turn of fate, the cooler wouldn't sink. Jerry wanted as little to do with this activity as possible. He moved to the other side of the boat as Thomas removed the remains, tied them to an anchor, and threw them overboard. As the chain slid off the side of the boat, Jerry cast a glance over his shoulder and saw that it was Anne Marie, and not an extortionist that went over with it. 18 months after her disappearance, the mystery was solved. Police kept Thomas under constant surveillance. When they saw him packing his car with overnight bags and heading down the highway, they decided he was making a run for it and picked him up. The trial began October 26, 1998. Thomas blamed the incident on what the local media dubbed the Debbie Did It defense. He said that his longtime paramour, Debbie McIntyre, was the true culprit. He testified that Debbie had burst into his home as he and Anne Marie were in a private moment. In Thomas's story, Debbie pulled out a firearm and threatened to do herself in. Debbie said the whole story was a lie, and she had nothing to do with Anne Marie in any capacity. Jerry agreed to testify against his brother, as well as another brother, Louis, who had been witness to Thomas's disposal of his tainted couch and carpeting. Thomas Capano was declared guilty by a jury on January 17, 1999. He received a sentence of capital punishment by lethal inoculation. He appealed but was rejected in 2006. The state abandoned their quest for capital punishment and sentenced Thomas to life without parole. At age 61, in 2011, a guard doing a routine check found Thomas unresponsive in his cell. He had passed away from a sudden cardiac arrest. He never admitted what he had done. His demise launched a multi-million-dollar feud over the family's real estate empire between his brothers. The case spawned 4 books, as well as a TV movie starring Mark Harmon as Thomas Capano. Power and wealth could only take Thomas Capano so far. In the end, he had to answer for his decisions. Do you think Thomas would have gotten away with it if he hadn't involved his brothers? What was his biggest mistake? Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to get more cool content just like this.